Namaste everyone. I am delighted to be here tonight at the Vicharamanthan event Hindu Faith Challenged, where we are going to explore the role of faith in Hindu traditions. My name is Sangam Karawadra and I am part of the Vicharamanthan Leicester team. Vicharamanthan, VM for short, is an independent voluntary organization which engages in an open dialogue with members of society and institutions. VM explores issues facing modern British society through a Hindu civilizational lens. Vicharamanthan is a phrase from Sanskrit meaning churning of ideas and thoughts. VM is built on the idea that earnestly exploring the toughest challenges facing British society through various viewpoints, we can, each of us, shed some deeper insight. VM has 5 chapters across the country: Leicester, Nottingham, London Central, London West, and Manchester. There are many volunteers who give their time, skill, and money to make these events happen. Without further ado, let me introduce you to tonight's chair, Sachin Nanda, who is the National VM Coordinator. He has a background in political philosophy with a particular interest in liberty. He has also studied Christian and Islamic theology. Thank you and enjoy tonight's VM.
I suppose one of the tasks of Vicharamanthan is to explore the values that come out of Hindu civilization and then translate that into a modern context. Vicharamanthan, of course, is not here to provide necessarily any answers or solutions or a particular message, but our expert witnesses live and breathe these values. And I suppose it's for you to walk away with seeds, a manthan, effectively enough ideas and enough information for you to do your own churning at your dinner tables, in front of your mandirs, or while you're meditating, or while you're running or jogging or going to work. That's the time to be doing these manthans. So I hope tonight is fruitful for you, and I hope we walk away with lots and lots of ideas. Hindu culture, of course, and traditions has plenty of religious ideas, philosophical ideas, and so on. And I'm delighted that with me today to explore the topic, which is faith, the position of faith within the Hindu tradition. A lot of us use this word, and it's a word that's obviously not native to the tradition. It's something that has come from the Greco-Roman world, steeped in Christianity and Islam, where they have very clear ideas about faith. And today, I want to explore what this notion of faith, if any, what role does it have within Hindu Dharma? And when we use the word faith, is it actually faith in the way in which other religions have used it? So let me just share with you, and I hope Vidya Bhaskaji can hear me. Vidya Bhaskaji, if you can hear me, put a thumbs up. Perfect. So let me just tell you what faith, just to give us context, faith from a Christian perspective looks like. And I'm going to quote a man called Professor Christopher Ward, who taught me Christianity, ironically. This is his understanding of faith in the Christian world. In the understanding of Jesus, it was an act of trust and self-abandonment in which people no longer rely on their own strength and policies, but commit themselves in the power and guiding word of Jesus, in whom they believe. So I just want you to, that's from a Christian theologian, ordained Christian minister, who says that faith is the trust and self-abandonment in which people no longer rely on their own strength and policies, but commit themselves to the power and guiding word of Jesus, in whom they believe. Okay? And he says the inspiration from this comes from Matthew 21:25 and Luke 1:20. In Islam, faith is equivalent to belief and compliance. a theologian called Ibn Taymiyyah, a very old scholar, says that faith is an affirmation. And what is an affirmation? It's nothing but a belief and then compliance with that belief. And the more you comply with that belief, the stronger your belief becomes. So the reason why I say that from the start is because then it will help us reflect upon how we use the term and how our traditions over millennia has grappled with some of these ideas, and hopefully we shall find out some more. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our expert witnesses who shall hopefully shed some light for us on this matter. On my left, I have Brahmacharini Sri Priyaji. Sri Priyaji received her Diksha in September 2016 under the guidance of Swami Buddha Anandyaji and Swami Tejomayanandaji. Prior to that, Sri Priyaji had studied for 2 years in Vedanta at Powai in India at the Chinmayan ashram there. She has an undergraduate degree from York and was raised in Kenya and the UK, and today she lives in London. To my right, we have Sister Induji, who took her Diksha in 1988 with the Brahma Kumaris, dedicating her life to serving humanity. Induji has spent 2 years in Lagos, in Nigeria, setting up the Brahma Kumari Center there. And today, Induji looks after the Brahma Kumari Center here in Leicester, and now lives here too. Then behind us, we have Acharya Vidya Bhaskar-ji. First and foremost, Vidya Bhaskar-ji is a scholar of Sanskrit at the Omkarananda ashram in Winterthur, Switzerland. He spent 7 years in Rishikesh at the Kailash ashram, where he learned Sanskrit and Vedanta. He has a master's in comparative religion and presently teaches Sanskrit and translates Hindu scripture into English and German. So these are our 3 witnesses, and what I would like to do before we get going into the actual subject matter is I'd like to ask each of them to share in 5 minutes a little bit about the particular tradition that they come from. So can we start with Sri Priyaji, if you can?
Namaste, everyone. So the Chinmaya mission was founded by some devotees of Swami Chinmayanandaji. Swami Chinmayanandaji, when he was younger, had actually declared himself to be an atheist and said that I don't believe in all of this, what people are preaching nowadays. And he was working as a journalist for a Delhi newspaper. And he said that all these sadhus who are living up in the mountains in Haridwar and Rishikesh, they're all fakes, they're cheaters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up there and I'm going to expose them. I'm going to write about how they are conning people into believing in them. And he went up there, and the more time he spent, he actually ended up with Swami Shivanandaji of the Divine Life Society. And the more time he spent there, he found that actually this is more true than anything I've ever studied or believed in. And so he took sannyas diksha from Swami Shivananda Maharaj and went to Uttarkashi to study further with Swami Tapovanji Maharaj. And after having gained this knowledge and becoming completely fulfilled by this knowledge of Vedanta, he decided that just as Gangaji flows down from the mountains to nourish the plains, he thought that this knowledge is so precious, but it's being held here in these places in the mountains, and it's my duty to share it with those who can benefit. So he took this knowledge and he started teaching. And at first he used to do long discourse series, firstly in India, which he called Jnana Yajnas, but he then started traveling all over the world. And this was in the early 1950s. And now in 2017, the Chinmaya Mission is an organization which teaches the wisdom of Vedanta all over the world. We have more than 350 centers worldwide. We run a rural development program in India. We have schools all over the world. But the mainstay of Chinmaya mission is this knowledge, this wisdom of Vedanta, which, when absorbed and assimilated, helps us to become fulfilled ourselves and to become positive and happy contributors to the society we're living in. And our center in the UK is in London. So this is just a brief introduction to Chinmaya mission.
Thank you very much.
Namaste and Om Shanti. Om Shanti is our greeting, and Om Shanti is something we use for ourselves also. And simply, Om Shanti means Om, I, Shanti, peace. So this is what I have faith in, that I am peace. I am a peaceful soul. The Brahma Kumaris focus on spirituality, study of the spirit. And even if you look at the word in Hindi of spirituality, Adhyatmikta. So Adhyatmikta means Atma ka Adhyan, study of the soul. The Brahma Kumaris started in 1936 in Hyderabad, in Sindh, which is now Pakistan. And the teachings of the Brahma Kumaris are based on creating, maintaining, and sustaining a relationship with the Supreme, with Param Pita, with our Father. How I got into this was that a Brahma Kumari center opened right opposite my house in Birmingham, and my parents would go there, and they would tell me to go also. And at that time I said, I don't need meditation. I'm very happy, and I'm not a bad person. There's nothing wrong. I'm a good person, kind, all of these things. And so this was my answer. I don't need meditation. In today's world, I think meditation is not a luxury. Meditation has become a necessity. And so this is the foundation of what we do. We're teaching meditation. Some people think meditation means to blank the mind. The Brahma Kumaris teach that meditation is focusing on the self, healing the self, and using your thoughts in the right direction. Because our thoughts do have a direction. The Brahma Kumaris also work on personal transformation. Their philosophy is that when I change, the world changes. So rather than looking out at other organizations, other people that they should change first, the government should change, so-and-so should change, firstly, I should change. Another school of thought is that yes, I can make effort on myself. I can become great. And there are many people in the world who have become great. Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa. But just becoming great in myself is not sufficient. I have to also empower others to become great. This is what spirituality teaches. But firstly, work on the self, and then that wave will spread of empowering others. So this is the philosophy of the Brahma Kumaris.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay. So I am a Guru cousin of Priyaji, because our Guruji Swami Vivekananda was also a disciple of Swami Shivananda of the Divine Life Society, and Swami Vivekananda left Shivananda, the passing away of Swami Shivananda, and then established his ashram in Switzerland. fortunate enough to grow up in the ashram, and at the age of 12, I was sent to Rishikesh to study Sanskrit at Kailas Ashram, which is also very close to the Vedantic movement. So our tradition is that of Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya, and the essence of Advaita Vedanta is really to realize that true nature as the same.
Sorry to interrupt you. Vidyabhaskarji, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. It looks like your streaming isn't clear at all, so I'm going to just get the team just to fix it while we carry on.
Okay.
So I do apologize, but don't worry, I will do you justice. I'll give you a little bit of your background to the audience while we just fix your sound system. It just looked like your streaming was a bit weak. So Vidyabhaskarji, I went to his ashram about a month back to Switzerland. And it's a very old ashram set up in the 1970s. There's an ashram there in Winterthur. There's also an ashram in Austria. And there are something like 30 full-time meditators at the ashram and who do seva permanently at the ashram there. And of course, which is important, I suppose, is that Swami Omkarananda, who is Vidyabhaskarji's guru, also was a shishya and a guru bhai of Chinmayan. So Swami Chinmayananda, but also Shivananda, so at the Shivananda ashram in Rishikesh. So that's a little bit of background. Did I get something wrong? Did you just say no, rubbish? Okay, Vidyabhaskarji, do you want to try? Do you want to say a few words to correct me?
Shall I try without the camera?
Could you pick that up? I couldn't pick that up.
You've got two devices.
Yeah, it looks like, Vidyabhaskarji, you've got two devices that are on. It looks like you're streaming on two things.
Yeah, there's something else.
So
Could it be your
is it
mobile
better
phone?
now?
Could it be your mobile phone that you want to switch off or make sure it's not interfering?
Is it better now? Is it better now?
It's a bit better. It's a bit better. Okay, well, what we'll do is we will start the discussion, and I want you to jump in, and then we will see how we get along, okay? So let's just bear with us. Okay, so I want to talk about faith. And the reason why I think faith is important and is because the premise that we are testing today is that faith, the way in which Hindu traditions use the term, is very, very different in intent and meaning to how when a Christian or a Muslim says the word faith is different. And it's only a premise. It could be totally wrong, and that's what we're here to explore, okay? The premise, I think, is that in our tradition, there is Vishwash, there is Shraddha, there is Gnan, and so many other subtle terms. And as I mentioned right at the beginning, from a Christian perspective, the notion of faith is very clear, right? It is the absolute trust and self-abandonment, so that you no longer rely on your strength and policies, but commit themselves to the power and guiding word of Jesus, whom they believe. So when a Christian says, I have faith, they're very clear about what they mean. When a Hindu says, I have faith, I'm going to question, and we'll all explore it, what we actually mean by that. So what we're going to do is for the next 20-25 minutes, the four of us, hopefully Vidyabhaskarji too, are going to explore what their understanding of faith is, both in theory and application, but also we're going to explore this notion of Shraddha, Gnan, and I'm going to throw in, just for fun, reasoning. What do all these things mean from the Hindu tradition? If Vidya Bhaskar-ji is there, Vidya Bhaskar-ji, can you hear us?
Yes,
Perfect.
I can.
Vidya Bhaskar-ji, do you want to, we'll start with you since you didn't get a fair opening. Do you want to tell us from your understanding, briefly as you can, I suppose, what you think the word faith means from the Hindu perspective, if there is one, and certainly what you think Shraddha means?
So can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, you see, there is not just a single answer. The Hindu tradition is so vast and it is so ancient that we are.
Oh, he's gone.
Means in Upanishadic context, then the answer is different. If we ask the question, what does Shraddha or Bhakti mean in a Bhakti tradition of the 16th century, then the answer is again different.
I don't think any. Vidya Bhaskar,
If we ask the question,
Vidya Bhaskar-ji, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to cut you again. We just cannot hear you very well.
Okay.
It seems to be cutting in and out. What I would suggest is I will leave you in the hands of Sharon, and then Sharon will let me know when you can join back in, but otherwise we'll carry on. Please do forgive me. It just seems like we can't hear you very well. So we will carry on. So apologies for that. But let's start then at least. Shushriyaji, tell me, if you use the word, firstly, do you use the word faith?
Yes.
You do.
There's no simple answer. But if we're to question what is faith, it's in the context of something, right? We're not examining it in a vacuum. Faith is a means. And what Hindu Dharma is pointing out to us is that what is our goal? Our goal is ultimately to know who we are. This is what Advaita Vedanta tells us, is that this knowledge that we are to gain of our true self is what will solve all of our problems for us. All of these seeming difficulties and challenges that are going on in life, all of these sorrows that we're facing, they are solved by the knowledge of who we are. And the reason that we're suffering right now is because we don't know. We don't have this knowledge. We're in ignorance. So our quest, I guess, is to move from what we know to the unknown.
So when you use the word faith, you are effectively, is there some sort of psychological leap you are making into the unknown that you, and I'm going to use the word hope, because of lack of a better word, hope that it will take you from darkness to light, or from avidya to vidya, etc. Is that what I'm sensing?
I would actually avoid the use of the word hope.
Well, go on. Yeah.
Because what this knowledge is based on is not kind of trial and error or some sort of guesswork. It's based on the knowledge and the experience of so many masters and so many people who have come to know this for themselves. So what they're saying is for us to experience the same thing. We don't know it right now, but in order to know that, faith is a means which we use to open ourselves up to that knowledge. Faith is not closing ourselves off from inquiry and saying, okay, I believe you, and that's it. I'm not going to do anything with what you've told me. Faith is a means to understand that knowledge which is being communicated.
It seems like you're describing, I would sum up as reasoned belief. Is that fair? It seems to be going towards the idea of reasoned belief. So on a reasonable ground, you are believing in something. So reasonable ground meaning the knowledge of all the previous gurus and teachers who have come before us, their experiences which are real, you can't discount that. Based on that, you have a belief. And that's how you use the term faith.
Yes.
Okay. How do you use the term faith? Is it similar? Is it totally different? Is it?
Firstly, I'd like to say that within the Hindu scriptures, there is the mention of faith. Like you said, it's there in Islam and Christianity and not so much in Hinduism. I would like to say there is the mention. In the Gita, there's the words uttered by Krishna that Nischay Buddhi Vijanti. Means Nischay is the Hindi for faith. So what I want to say here is that we're mixing English and Hindi. Shraddha, Nischay, Gyan. These are the Hindi words. So Shraddha, I would say, is respect. I'll come to that as well. Nischay is faith, which you say also Vishwas. And it's when I have faith in the knowledge that I'm able to apply the knowledge. Before I can apply it, I need to absorb it. It needs to be absorbed. Like, for example, bread and butter. You have cold bread and cold butter. So then the butter becomes difficult to spread. But if you warm that bread, if you toast it, then you spread that butter, it absorbs it. The bread absorbs the butter. So absorbing the knowledge can only happen when I have faith in the one who is giving the knowledge. If I don't have faith in the one who's giving the knowledge, it's going to be difficult to absorb, to go in, to penetrate. So faith is mentioned, nischay. You need nischay. The other place where faith is mentioned is generally in the world we say faith can move mountains. Faith doesn't just apply to religion or tradition or to spirituality. It applies in any field. Like yesterday, we went to a meeting for some program that they're planning to do in March, a holy program, a holy festival program. And you could feel within the gathering, there's about 30, 40 of us, you could feel that the program would be a success. Program is 3 or 4 months away, but there was like the faith within everyone that it will happen and it will be successful. So faith isn't just exclusive to Hinduism or a religion. You can have faith in anything and everything.
So, okay, so on both counts, let me just then go on then to explore, if that is how you use the word faith, what, if any, so you said nischay in our Gita, when in the Gita I say nischay, you translated that as faith, right? My question is twofold. One is, that certainly there's some overlap, I can sense that, but it certainly isn't the way a Christian or a Muslim would use the word faith. So that's number one. Number two, I suppose, on top of that is tell me a little bit about Shraddha then. So often Shraddha, you just Wikipedia it, or Google it. Shraddha always comes out as faith or trust, this sort of translation. How would you, in fact, Vidya Bhaskar-ji, see if we can try you one more time. Vidya Bhaskar-ji, do you want to tell us something about Shraddha? No? Okay, so, no, okay. Shripriyaji, tell us something about, how do you interpret the term Shraddha?
So actually I think from what I understood, Nischay is the Hindi word for faith, right? So when we're looking at Shraddha is a Sanskrit word, And that generally is what we translate as faith.
Yes. And I'm doubting that. I'm questioning that.
So I'll attempt to use a little bit of Sanskrit. Hopefully it's not too boring. And I ask that Vidya Bhaskar-ji, please correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. So Shraddha is split. Shrat and Dha. Shrat means Sat, which means the truth. And Dha is a root, which means to give, or to uphold, to sustain. So Shraddha, if we look at it etymologically, is that which gives us the truth. Now, someone could say that, well, how do you jump from there to faith? But if we are to absorb this knowledge, if we are to abide in this knowledge, if we are to grasp this knowledge when it's being communicated by a teacher in the scriptures, the essential ingredient in this process is faith. Is this
faith in the sense that how you described it before,
yes,
which is reasoned belief,
yes,
and not faith in the way that a Christian would say faith?
Yes. Well, so I don't have a background in
okay. If we took Christopher Ward, who's a Christian theologian at Oxford, or retired theologian at Oxford, if we take his understanding of faith, right, as how a Christian understands faith, then that is not how you're using it. You're using it in a different way, which is reasoned belief. Is that fair? Is that not fair?
I think so, because from what I understood of what you read of his definition, it seems to imply that faith puts an end to inquiry.
Well, I'll read it out again. These are his words, by the way. In the understanding of Jesus, it was an act of trust and self-abandonment, in which people no longer rely on their own strength and policies, but commit themselves to the power and guiding word of Jesus in whom they believe. Now that to me doesn't seem like the way you're using faith. You're using faith in what a philosopher would call reasoned belief.
So I think, yes, I would agree that there is a difference between the two.
Right. And Shraddha, you said very, very, very beautifully. You summed Shraddha up as truth and to give. So that which gives truth is Shraddha.
Yes.
Understood. How would you reflect on that?
There's a word which is very similar to Shraddha, and it's a word which I'm sure every Hindu has heard of, and that word is Shrad. Shrad is I don't know if you would use the word festival, but it's a time, and during that specific time, it's based on our Shraddha that we offer bhog, or offer something to our ancestors. And the whole basis of this Shrad is on Shraddha. Shraddha to me, maybe a different word would be devotional feelings. Or you would say bhavna. Like you said, it's a Sanskrit word, but bhavna in which there's no dilution or pollution. How I see it differing from faith, it's very similar, like you said, it's overlapping almost. But I can have Shraddha in many, but faith in one. Like, I can have Shraddha in many people. The feelings, those good feelings, pure feelings for many, but my faith is in God. Does that make sense, or does that require?
So the first time around, when you were describing faith, you were talking about how faith for you is similar in the sense of what Shripa said. So it was a belief that kind of took you. It was a prerequisite to absorbing knowledge.
Yes.
Right? It was a prerequisite to absorbing knowledge. Which is interesting, because again, you seem to be using faith differently to how Christopher Ward would use it, which is fine, but I just want to clarify that. Is that how you, yes or no? Or, because you're saying that you still have a role to play in it. You have a faith in a teacher, then you can learn what that teacher has to give. But if you have no faith to begin with, then...
No. See, when you have faith, then you're able to absorb better. So faith, it's a foundation, plus it's a result.
Right.
It's both. Okay?
Would you say self-abandonment?
No.
No.
Why should we abandon ourselves?
Okay.
We are very in control of ourselves. We're very aware of what we're doing. We're very aware of our each and every thought. So I'm not going to just abandon myself blindly to anything.
Which is interesting, isn't it? Because that's how a pious Christian would take it. And I keep harking on to it only because I want us to reflect on that and understand that it seems like the Hindu tradition uses the word faith in a very different way, in a very empowering way, actually. You both seem to be suggesting a very empowering concept, whereas from a theological perspective, at least a Christian theological perspective, it's not quite like that.
See, we're living in the 21st century, and everything has to be relevant. We do everything with logic, with reasoning, with understanding. We want full information, and then we will make our decision. If I don't have full information, then the decision might be not the right one. Sometimes we also base our decisions on our feelings. Like, for example, you feel love, so then you'll base your decision on that. Or you feel hatred for somebody, your decision will be based on that. So our feelings can change. Our decisions can change. But when I have knowledge, then that knowledge is to help me grow. But having knowledge is not enough. I will give an example. Within the Gita, there are characters who have full knowledge. They have full knowledge that Krishna is an avatar and he is the supreme. This knowledge they have. Yet, they are on the side of negativity. They fight on the side of the negativity. So, for example, you have Dronacharya, you have Karan, you have Bhishma Pitama. They are fully versed. They are fully knowledgeful. They have the Gyan. They have the understanding, but still they don't have the faith that Krishna's word is ultimate. So that's one reason. Whereas Arjun, he had faith. Not, I wouldn't say self-abandonment, but he had the faith that this is what...
Krishna, this is Krishna's words. What role then does Gnan and reason play in relation then to your notion of faith?
So I think it's also important to think about what we mean when we say knowledge. So for example, Induji mentioned that there were people on the other side of the Mahabharata who knew that Krishna was an avatar, but yet continued to fight against him. But when we talk about knowledge in Advaita Vedanta, having knowledge means that I know who I am, and I know the nature of the world, and I know the nature of that self. And that knowledge, because right now it's not clear to me, faith is what will make that available.
Faith will make that knowledge available.
Yes.
In the sense that, I'm going to paraphrase what Induji said a moment ago, which was faith would be, now I'm going to call it Hindu faith, okay? because faith is not a native term to us, so I want to call it Hindu faith. So Hindu faith is something that is like butter, which softens it so you can absorb knowledge. In that sense you mean it, or you mean it in a different way? When you say it will, while we are on the journey of Gnan, faith is a useful tool. In that sense, or in some other sense?
I'll give you an example.
Yes.
So, for example, many of you in the audience, or majority of you, we've not met before. Maybe you've not met Induji or Sachinji before. But you've come here with the Shraddha that we know a little bit about what we're talking about. So you're able to...
We hope.
We hope. So this, what it does is it opens your mind. So whenever I say something, you're open to it. You receive it, you can think about it, you reason for yourself, is it true, is it not? If there was no Shraddha, you would come here, we would speak, and you would say, what a bunch of, I don't know, they don't know what they're talking about. Which means the knowledge that we're perhaps sharing here is not available to you, because you've decided we don't know what we're talking about. So in that sense, when we have faith in the teacher, in the scriptures, and in the goal, it makes it available to us.
Okay. So, just a general question, okay? Is, when we communicate in English, and we are trying to discuss these things, and especially both of you, you're in positions where you are teachers to many, many people. To what extent then is it appropriate to, no, let me reverse the question. To what extent is it necessary to qualify this idea of belief, this idea of faith that both of you are I think, very much in a similar direction, asserting, which is something that would be quite alien to a scholar of, or a theologian of Christianity or Islam. It would be quite alien to them, the way you've used this word faith. Not alien maybe, but they certainly wouldn't class it as faith how they understand it. To what extent is it important that we qualify these terms when we are doing, or when we are, I suppose, teaching some of this? Because my contention, and the audience will probably prove me totally wrong, because it's such a distinguished audience, but my contention is that the audience, most people, I'm one of those, doesn't really have a clue what we mean when we say faith, when we use these beautifully subtle words. I think the Hindu tradition, and most people here are probably from the Hindu tradition in some shape or form, they will intuit what you're trying to say, I think. They are intuitive about it. But do we have any Christian brothers or sisters here, or Muslim brothers or sisters here? No? Oh, okay. It would have been interesting to ask them directly. But having studied Christian and Islamic theology, well, is it a question? Oh.
You need to ask about what Christians and Muslims might say.
Yeah, are you one? Are you?
No, but I wanted to say what the Scout Association uses the word faith.
Okay.
And I think it's interesting what Induji said, she used the word blind. And I think a lot of British people would use the word blind faith for the definition that you gave in theology.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. So this is why, when you look at it from a scientific method, the notion of Christian faith is deemed as blind faith. The scientific method, anybody who pursues the scientific method will generally say that. But here it seems to be very much more reasoned. It seems to be based on this idea of understanding the lineage that both of you come from. So you come from an established lineage, right? You both come from a guru shishya parampara to some degree, and therefore when you teach, it's of a different magnitude to somebody who just stands up and says, hey, believe in me, so I understand that. Let me ask Induji, you first. I can tell you quite clearly that if you were to ask a Christian theologian, he will say faith trumps reason every time. He will say that comfortably, and he'll be totally earnest and clear about it, and he'll give you a whole thesis on why, and that's fair enough. Where does reason and faith, what is their relationship in your mind?
So when you say the word reason, to me that means logic.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah?
That's fine.
So faith and logic go hand in hand. Firstly, I need to ask myself the question, that faith in what? You have to have faith in something. So the Brahma Kumaris, their understanding is faith in 4 things. Not just faith in God, that's one of them, but faith in the self, faith in God, faith in time, and faith in karma. Because often we see, and many people say, that there's a lot of injustice in the world today. You've probably heard this expression, that we feel that there's injustice in the world today. But if I have faith in karma, and the law of karma is, as you sow, so shall you reap. And this has come from the Bible, the Christian understanding. But it's not just a Christian understanding, it's a law. So you can translate it in another belief as whatever, if I throw a ball against the wall, it will come back to me. So whatever I'm putting out comes back to me. Whatever I'm sowing, that's what I'll get. If I have faith in this law, and it's a natural, automatic law, it's not a man-made law. It is happening automatically. So if I have faith in this law, then the understanding, the conclusion will be that there is no such thing as injustice in the world. Everybody will get what they have sown. If I have sown an apple seed, I will get an apple tree. If I have sown negativity, I will reap negativity. There will be a time lapse in between. Because when you sow the seed, and when you get the fruit, or the vegetable, or the flower, there's a time lapse in between. We forget we have sown a seed, and then we wonder, why am I reaping sorrow? Why am I reaping hurt? Somewhere along the line, I have sown the seed. So it's like, with this example of seed and the reward, the fruit, there's a time gap in between. If I use the example of throwing a ball against the wall, it'll come back to me immediately. If I have the understanding that if I'm in a valley and I shout Om Shanti, there'll be an echo. And it will come to me 100 times louder than what I've said it. Much louder than the way I have said it. This is karma.
Okay, so let me ask a question then. Let me just push you a little bit. I don't think I have faith in gravity. I just know it's there, and I am comfortable with the mathematics behind it, that it's there. I don't have to have faith that I am breathing. I know that there is oxygen here, and that is why I'm breathing. Or, so that's how I cognize it. So it seems as if when something settles and matures or fruitions as Gnan, then faith seems to shed itself. Now, is my psychological experience somehow wrong, alien, or because it seems like I don't have faith in gravity. I know it. I have faith in other things that I'm working towards. The knowledge hasn't settled yet. You can reflect and then intervene.
I think, right, because we need faith when something is unknown to us. Once we have knowledge of that thing, then faith is no longer required. It's knowledge, I know. Right?
Okay, so in the end, is that how you'd understand it as well, based on the examples you just gave? That once you get to a position where you know the law, as you said, faith is...
See, like I said earlier, knowledge on its own is not sufficient. You need application, you need to practice it, you need to experiment, you need to experience.
But again, just to push a little bit, would you not say that when something is true knowledge to me, then I am naturally compelled to act in accordance with that knowledge?
No.
No?
Within the Mahabharata, the Gita, then, did you think Bhishma Pitama didn't have knowledge? He had full knowledge. But
could I dare and say, well, he may have had theoretical knowledge, but yet he was bound by his statesmanship, and so he was...
So he didn't act according to the truth.
Right.
Yeah?
Right.
He still fought on the side of the Kauravas.
Sure, even though he knew it was wrong.
He knew. So knowledge is not sufficient.
Okay. Interesting. No, that's
you need
interesting.
Practice. You need to absorb. So firstly, you experiment. Then you experience. Yeah? Then knowledge, it's magical.
So just for my own clarity then, would you say Bhishma Pita in that example hadn't fully absorbed the knowledge?
I won't say that he hadn't fully absorbed
okay.
it, yeah? So he didn't apply it.
Didn't apply it. Okay. Interesting. That's really interesting.
He
That's
wanted to, but like the word you used was compelled.
Yes.
So to which direction was he compelled? Which direction was he compelled to fight?
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because it almost looks as if, not that I'm a scholar of Mahabharata by any means, because I'm not, but from what little I know, it seems as if he was probably internally compelled to be with the Pandavas, yet he was constrained by this vow that he had taken to be...
See, I would use another word, and you can correct me. I'm sure you will anyway.
No, dare not.
Obligation. I have knowledge, but at the same time, we also have obligations. So he had the knowledge, but he felt obliged to fight with the Kauravas because that was where his bread and butter was from.
Interesting. Okay, fair enough. Vidya Bhaskar-ji, are you there? Is he there, Sharon? Oh, okay, yes, please. Thank you. Can I read it out? Yeah. Wonderful. So, Vidya Bhaskar-ji being Vidya Bhaskar-ji, he's instead given us an essay, which I'm going to just very quickly summarize for us and see if it adds anything to our Q&A that's coming up. So really interesting. One of the things he talks about is this notion of people having faith in speakers and people who we consider to be knowledgeable. He talks about pramana, valid understanding based on evidence. So he mentions this. Well, the whole thing is quite long, and it will be here until 8 o'clock if I was to read it out. It's quite long, but I will try and summarize as best as I can. So one thing he talks about is pramana, this notion of valid understanding based on evidence. And then this is what he says about faith. Faith in the sense of belief. Faith in the sense of belief plays little role in this process. But Shraddha, as an older sense, Shrat, according to Nigahantu, means Satya, truth, which is kind of what you alluded to. Furthermore, according to the Brihadandranikya Upanishad, Shraddha is established in the heart. Shrat is also an old word for hit, heart, and can thus mean to place one's heart. So that's his understanding of, or his proposition of Shraddha. He then goes on. Sorry, I'm just going to sum up some of these other points. So here, he then sums it up and he says, here, Shraddha clearly means dedication, not blind belief. So basically what he seems to be asserting throughout this, I wish I could read it all to you, but what he seems to be asserting here, I wish he was here to say it himself, is that Shraddha is something, is a form of dedication where you place your heart, your activity, but based on reason and evidence and a pramana, the idea of lineage. So there are some of the thoughts that Vidya Bhaskaraji gives us. And I hope, which I'm sure I've not done anywhere near enough justice to some of his thoughts, but they're here. So during the Q&A, maybe I'll bring, if it's relevant, some of Vidya Bhaskaraji's points in on this. So let me come to you, the audience.
So it was said that faith is required for things that are unknown. I don't see the requirement. Why not leave the unknown until it is known? You know, just question it until it is known. I don't think the process of questioning is faith.
Sorry, yeah. I'm struggling to pick up what you're saying.
So it said that faith is required for the unknown.
Yes.
But why believe the unknown on the basis of faith? Why not reason until the unknown becomes known?
Understood. Okay, fine. Yeah, that's question one. Second question was over there. Yeah. If you just keep your hands raised, then Nilaji knows where to come.
Yeah, a very brief comment and related to that question. Given that we've had Advaitic thoughts here, I was somewhat disappointed that we were overemphasizing on the word faith and trying to correlate it with words in our own languages. And, you know, it's disappointing that we try to take a concept which is actually now in disrepute, this idea of faith. You know, it's created a schism, first between philosophy and religion amongst the West, and then between religion and science. And given that the West has abandoned this idea of faith in its sort of primitive sense, and given the difficulties we as Hindus in Britain face in interfaith forums where the word faith actually is disreputable anyway, I would suggest that what we should be doing is to not use that word at all and use our words on our terms to describe our traditions.
Wonderful, great. Okay, that'll be good reflection points. And the third question, just over here.
I think we need to go beyond just exploration of the concept of faith. We need to talk about discipleship. I think that is an important concept in both Hinduism and other faiths as well. So when we talk about discipleship of Christ, we are talking about those two key words which he talked about in his definition, which is understanding and self-abandonment. So when we talk about understanding, there is a cognitive element to that. Cognitive element in the sense of rationality, reasoning, etc. Self-abandonment in the sense that I am abandoning certain preconceived ideas about what I have, and therefore I will focus on the guidance which is given by Christ. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna at a certain stage in his crisis also, so at a certain stage he does say that I am now putting myself in your hands, self-abandonment, and tell me what to do. In other words, I want to know what you are going to tell me, and therefore that is my discipleship to you, Lord Krishna.
Okay, so interesting. So on discipleship, brilliant. So there are the three questions. Let me just quickly bring them for all of us to reflect on. The first one was about, in this journey from the unknown to known, clarify a little bit as to why faith is even necessary. In your definitions, the way you described it, why can't we just use reason to discover, go from unknown to known? Who would like to start? Was that to anyone particular? You didn't mention. Everyone? Okay, Indraji, why don't you start and then reflect?
We can use it. We should use it. It's necessary. Logic, reasoning, rational, like you said, it's necessary.
But why have faith at all? Why do we need faith for that journey? Why not just use reason?
It just makes the journey easier. Okay. Makes it much more smooth. Rather than, we analyze, we process, we reasoning, right? All of these things, time goes in this. And so when I have full faith, when I have a deep faith, then I'm saved from a lot of hard work. It doesn't seem laborious anymore. It's like I'm not questioning, is it right, is it wrong, should I, shouldn't I? I have faith, then you just get to the destination.
Okay. Anything you want to reflect on that?
I think faith doesn't preclude reasoning. It doesn't exclude reasoning. And actually I would ask that for reason, do you not have faith in your intellect? When you say that we use reason to discover the unknown, you have faith in your intellect and the logic that you're using that this will get me to my goal. This will reveal the knowledge to me. So faith doesn't mean abandoning intellect and abandoning reasoning and logic. Faith is needed even for that reasoning. You believe that the framework that I'm using and the intellect that I'm using to use logic and reasoning, you have faith in that. So by no means are they mutually exclusive, I think.
Okay, interesting. The second question, interesting way related to it, but this is specifically about language use. Okay, specifically about language use. And the question, if I may sum it up, or the statement, was effectively, why are we using this imported word to describe very, very subtle ideas from within the Hindu tradition, and why not just use Sanskrit Hindi terms, which is far more easy to articulate what we mean in that language than by using the word faith at all. So why are we using the word faith?
Because you told us to. This is what the whole discussion was. You told us to use this word.
I did. So you heard it here. You heard it here that if it wasn't for me, they would never use the word faith.
We wouldn't be here.
Or you wouldn't be here. But okay, so.
If you remember, at the beginning I said that in the Gita, there's the words Nischay Buddhi Vijanti, means a faithful intellect claims victory. Faith will lead us towards victory. And then the opposite of faith is
Anishtay.
The opposite of faith, we're sticking to English, yeah?
Okay.
Okay, so the opposite of faith is doubt.
Yeah.
And in the Gita, the words are, a doubting intellect is destroyed.
Okay, so, but to the point here is, do we even need to use this word faith? Why not just use Nishchaya? Why not just use Shraddha? Why not just use Gnan? Why do we even have to use the word faith?
Because you told us to.
Okay.
I don't understand.
Do we need to use the word faith in any of your teachings, in any of your books? I've read a lot of Brahma Kumari books. I've read a lot of Chinmayan Mission books. The word faith is there quite regularly. So, okay, I'm going to get myself out of jail now. Okay. But do we need to use the word faith at all?
Yes.
Still, we still need to use the word faith.
Yes.
Okay, so explain why.
Faith is a result also.
Okay.
Faith
it's a resource.
It's a result.
Oh, so, okay.
Like I said, it's the foundation, means it's the roots. You need that to begin with. You start with faith. You have.
I understand the concept, but why couldn't we say we need to start with Nishchaya or Shraddha? Why do we have to use the word faith?
It's up to you what word you use. Means you have to start with some feeling.
So please, but it has to be quick.
Yeah, very quick. You see, our difficulty with the word faith is that other people define it, and then other people then define us in the way we seek to try and redefine it in our terms, and we fail in the dialogue. And so my challenge to us, to everyone in this audience who is dharmic, is to say we have a rich vocabulary, we have a very subtle and ancient history. Let us not use borrowed words which misinterpret the rich ideas that you, all three of you, or four of you have expounded, let us debate these things on our terms. That's
interesting. Okay, so Shipraj, you want to jump in here? Into the fire. Come into the fire with us.
I think it's an excellent point that we have this beautiful language, Sanskrit, which actually, the depth of meaning that we can get from Sanskrit is rarely available in English. So it would be great if we could say Shraddha and Vishwas and Nishchaya, etc. But from a teaching perspective, which isn't necessarily the perspective that you're speaking from, sometimes our role is to make this knowledge accessible. And if we go around speaking in Sanskrit, people tend to,
Okay. No, that's
sure, which, if we can do that, that would be great, and I think it would add so much value. So
interesting. Okay.
I agree.
So this is really interesting because one of the reasons why Vicharamanthan wanted to explore this was exactly this. A, to clarify all these terminologies, but also because you will notice, and this comes beautifully to the third question, which is this notion of discipleship. But it comes to this notion that, the Hindu tradition very quickly gets broad brushed with faith. The Hindu faith. And it's very interpreted synonymously with the Christian faith, the Muslim faith, or whatever other faith there might be, the Baha'i faith. And I suppose the question we're asking, and I don't really, again, know the answer per se, but it's an exploration that we should be having on our terms to say, if we can use our language, then why don't we popularize our language to express some of these subtle terms? But I suppose the prerequisite to that was to understand when we do use the word faith, how do we use it? And then that comes to this point about discipleship, which was the third question. And I thought it was a very, very subtle and powerful question that we should talk about not just faith. Now I'm nervous about using the word, you see, look what you've done. But we should move on to this notion of discipleship. I have a few thoughts, but Shripa, do you want to start on this one? Discipleship? And you both have obviously taken that route, so.
I think it's a result of faith, maybe, that I'm able to become a disciple. I'm able to accept a teacher when I have faith.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Can I say, is it reasoned belief?
Why don't we use the word Shraddha?
Okay, let's use the word Shraddha. All right, we'll use the word Shraddha. It's because of your Shraddha. Okay.
When I have Shraddha, I can become a Shishya. Shishya means disciple. When I have Shraddha, then I can have Sharanagati, which means surrender, which is what Arjuna did. He surrendered and he said that I'm going to accept what you teach me. I'm going to become your Shishya, Shishyasteham, he says. So faith, or Shraddha rather, would lead somebody, I think, to become a Shishya and to accept this discipleship.
Right, okay.
This whole notion of disciple and guru. I want to ask the audience here, how many have a guru?
Hands up if you
Just
have a guru.
raise your hands. I'm not going to ask the name of the guru. And do we really follow that guru? Do we really follow what that guru says, what he's, does he ask us anything? And so it's a very beautiful relationship. It's even more like you have parent and child. You have disciple and guru. And so if I'm following to a T, if I'm understanding and applying, then that relationship can actually take you very far. You can grow spiritually very fast. If I'm following.
Is it me, or is the Hindu Samaj at large quite a critical, skeptical audience? Not you guys, but generally the Hindu Samaj. Would you say Hindu Samaj is generally skeptical about easily giving oneself to discipleship? Any thoughts? Who would say, hands up if you think, yes, we're quite a skeptical bunch?
Can I just interfere? Sorry.
Yeah, go. No, it's your stage.
I don't think the skeptics, whatever, it's come because of what we hear in the news, because of the stories that are out there now. That, gurus have misused wealth, gurus have misused the relationship. And that's where the skepticism has come from. It's not because there's no faith in them. There was faith, but the faith has been broken.
I will leave the discipleship there. 3 more questions. So one over here, the first one here, the second one there in the middle row, and then the third one back here in the front. So first one, just keep your hand up, please. Yeah, the first one just there.
I've struggled a lot with the word faith, but it's an easy word to make sense of because it's used so much, especially for the younger generation. I don't know, I might be the only one, but it's an easy word. I think the definition that you gave, the one from, I can't remember his name, Christopher
Ward.
It made sense to me a lot. And the way I see it is not self-abandonment, it's surrender to something higher. So if you've got troubles or you've got issues and you can't find the answers, it's surrendering to something else. And for us, it's just God. So I actually think that is a really, really good example, but it's how you perceive it is the way that I think is the most important.
Fine. So that's a statement, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, that's fine. So I'll just keep a note to that. Second question was just further down in the middle.
Thank you. It's more of a statement rather than a question. But going back to the word Shraddha, even and talking about the Gita Ji again, we've got Shraddhavan Labhate Jnanam, right? Through the faith, one obtains knowledge. And again, in the Gita Ji it says, Tad Vidhi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya. He goes, Tat Vidhi. Who wants to know the truth? He says, Pranipatena. They should surrender onto a guru's feet. And then Pariprashnena. So it's not a blind faith. It is actually an Upanishadic dialogue which happens. And who gives that dialogue? Tattvadarshinaha, the one who has actually known the truth. So for them it's not a belief, it's a fact. But this person is going through a belief, he's going through a road, and within that he will then find the same Tattvadarshinaha that his guru has already sought.
Fascinating. Great, so we're going to reflect on that one. And then there was the third. Well done. And then there was the third question here, just here in the front again.
So I think you touched on that definition. I think this word Sharanagati is very good because this is the other part of faith that we kind of have spent a little less time talking about this evening. And I think that refers back into your original Christian definition of faith, that self-abandonment, that's possibly what we're talking about, Sharanagati. And I think there's sometimes people take that too far and they stop questioning, and sometimes people realize that actually what it means is that I surrender myself such that I can receive and absorb what is being taught to me. My question is actually that in the Hindu tradition we have obviously a lot of devotees who are well lauded for their Sharanagati, their ability to surrender themselves. Someone like Mirabai, for example, or not necessarily as intellectuals or whatever, but they do this surrender. So how do we understand them in this context of the intellectual side of faith that we've been sort of discussing this evening? How do the two marry up?
Your question is, how do we understand people who surrender to...
So they obviously have genuinely a great amount of faith belief, Sharanagati, they've done that.
Yes.
And that sort of faith, how do we reconcile that with this slightly more intellectual form of faith that we've kind of spent most of this evening discussing?
Understood. Okay, that's an interesting question. Yeah, okay. Brilliant. So let's... So the first point was about surrender. Generally, the comment was that this notion of surrender sort of struck a chord with you, I think is what you said. And it goes back to some of the earlier points that were made, that only when you surrender, you're ready to absorb and all of that. I want to reflect that with the second point as well, which is that when we talk about all these notions, we're talking about, and I'm going to use the phraseology that Krunal used, which is an Upanishadic dialogue, is what he said. An Upanishadic dialogue, which is that there is a to and fro, a question and answer, and there is a inquiry into the subject matter, where of course Shraddha plays a role, but also there is Gnan that is being developed in the mind of the Shishya. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I got the sensation, I want you guys to reflect on this, but I got the sensation that you were saying that once a Shishya reaches a certain understanding, and that Gnan settles, that they become something higher, better, and therefore this notion of Shraddha is, you've kind of almost transgressed it, you've almost gone beyond it. Is that what you were asserting there?
Thank you. Yes, that's when Gyan turns into Vidya, right?
Okay, so it turns into, so you say it turns into Vidya?
It's an evolution.
Yeah, okay.
Of the sadhak's journey.
Okay, so can we reflect on these things then? So the first question was this notion of surrender and how it appeals, this total surrender. But then there's this second notion that actually that's maybe a emotional, psychological state to begin with, but then you actually grow through dialogue, through inquiry, through sitting at the feet of a guru and absorbing he or she and their knowledge to then become something greater. So there's a sense of becoming.
So initially you start off as a seeker. You're questioning. Like I go back to the Gita. Arjun is questioning, why should I fight? I don't want the kingdom. He's saying, is it worth it? This is his question. So he's questioning and then he's receiving knowledge. And so at the end of it then, he's empowered. Yes, I'll fight. So the knowledge is giving him courage to fight. And so what the gentleman said, that it's a evolution, it's a process, I agree. You start with something that A equals C or whatever, and then the result is A equals C.
Okay, so again, there's a growing, and it's interesting what you said, it's a tradition of seekers.
Yeah.
You start off seeking.
Seeker, but also you start off with an assumption.
An assumption. Yeah, very good, okay. And do you want to reflect on these thoughts?
I think it was a very good point, and I agree that sort of Shraddha has its role to play up until knowledge is gained. Once knowledge is gained, it's a question of pramana, which is what Vidya Bhaskarji had mentioned. It's no longer a question of Shraddha. Pramana means a means of knowledge. So for example, to see, to perceive form or color, my eyes are the means of knowledge. Right? I don't need to have faith that this is yellow, because my eyes are telling me it's yellow. It's a question of knowledge. So Shraddha has a role to play until we accept something as pramana. If I didn't have faith in my eyes, then, if I didn't believe that my eyes were the pramana for seeing yellow, if I thought that maybe by my ears I can check if this is yellow, then I need faith in my eyes. But because my eyes are the valid means of knowledge, I don't need faith in them. That is pramana. So Vedanta, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads are our pramana to gain knowledge, to know the self. Until we accept them as pramana, we need faith. Once they're accepted and once that knowledge is gained, Shraddha no longer plays this role of being an essential ingredient in this process.
Okay. So it seems like in the Hindu tradition that from seeking, there is a role for Shraddha, and then through the Guru-Shishya relationship, the Shishya grows into something where there is Gnan. is kind of the journey that we all seem to be suggesting. And to me, that, is it me? But having studied, Christianity and Islam, that is not, with all due, that's just my understanding of it maybe, and I've spoken to lots and lots of my old professors. That is what we are discussing here is very different in some sense, in a great sense, to what they would be discussing. We're talking about a tradition that is thousands of years old, that has been seeking and questioning, but then also becoming. It's not just leaving it in your head, you're becoming something. I think we have to, how long do I have? I can't see the light. 5 minutes, we have 5 minutes. Okay, so maybe we have time for one question and then we can have some closing remarks. So just one question, it needs to be short, sharp and snappy. Sorry?
We didn't talk about.
Oh, sorry, we didn't talk about it. Sorry, yes, sorry. Yes, and that's the 5 minutes gone. Sorry, no more questions now. The feeling and reason. You mentioned that's to sum up your question was something about what's the role of reason within.
So we have these people like Shabri, Mirabai.
Yes.
Who surrendered.
Yes.
How do we reconcile that with
this?
This more intellectual.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? So, okay, so I could be a devotee, and you're suggesting that without or much reason, I surrender to Hinduji without much reason, because there is something emotionally I am getting that I feel. What role does that play?
Well, that is the other way in which we kind of perceive faith, we understand.
Oh, good. Is it?
And what is the difference? How do we reconcile that?
Yeah, is it? Is that even healthy? Imagine I just threw myself at your feet and I said, I don't know anything about you, but I accept. I surrender, I accept. Is that even healthy? No, categorically.
And I don't think that's what Shabri or Mirabai were doing.
Right. What do you think they were doing?
When this Sharanagati took place. Shabri was instructed by her guru that Ram will come. Take his name and Ram will come. So she had faith in her guru that he has said it, so it will come true. So she kept repeating his name and he appeared before her. So the result of her faith was that she saw the result, right? It came true, whatever her guru had said.
So you're saying that her Shraddha was on the guru, not necessarily
in the Lord, in Ram.
In Ram, it was on the guru. Okay, fine. So again, it seems to be based on what you said, the categorical no as well. Is that is probably something?
Okay, a true guru will never want their shishya to just fall at their feet. They will want that shishya to grow, to connect with the higher power, to connect with the ultimate. A guru will guide, a guru will maybe bless, a guru will encourage, but I wouldn't want that you fall at my feet. I would remove my feet from there. Seriously.
That's wonderful. It's clear.
Yeah?
Very, very clear.
So what does the guru want? Does he want that we worship him, that we praise him with his faults and all? No. We want three things. We want power. We want solutions because we have problems. We want power because sometimes we're weak, like Arjuna. We want solutions because there's problems. And we want a cure because there are mental diseases like emptiness, loneliness, heaviness, depression. These things are there. So the soul needs these things. That's what we want. Wonderful. Where am I going to get that from? Plus, I need access to a power 24/7. Do I have access to a guru 24/7? Why I came to Brahma Kumaris? Because I could I could get access to the Supreme 24/7.
Understood.
The help was there, the power was there, the solutions were there. This is why I became a Brahmakumari.
Wonderful. So, we don't have, sadly, time has caught up with us and we don't have much time left. Let me tell a little bit about a background, and I want to specifically thank our expert witnesses who've been here, Shripriyaji from London and Induji, who's now actually just round the corner, who looks after Brahma Kumari Centre on Rose Walk here in Leicester. So please, a big round of applause for our expert witnesses. I want to, before I hand back this Vicharamantan for some closing remarks, I want to just say that one of the key reasons why these dialogues, and that's what this was a dialogue, are so important in our community is because the premise is that there is some sort of Hindu Renaissance happening, that there is some sort of self-confidence arising within the community. And so we are exploring subtleties of language, subtleties of ethics, of philosophy, of rights and duties and all these things. And so this was a platform to get expert witnesses who live and breathe the tradition, who've actually not just theorized it, as I have, but actually live it, to come and share their experiences with us. And I hope you will support us going forward into having many more dialogues like this, where we learn to, and we can explore how, as a community, we can reclaim some of the ideas, the definitions, the language, and the narrative around how we even experience ourselves and our own tradition within a modern context. So,
can I just say something?
Of course you can. You can always say something.
What you've just said, I agree with, but what I would like to add is that don't limit it to a Hindu Renaissance. I find it, my personal experience is, it's worldwide.
Sure.
There's more positivity nowadays. Yes, the negativity is there, but people are interested. Like, how many here are on WhatsApp? How many here are on WhatsApp? Don't be shy. So, tell me if I'm wrong, but do you get positive forwards? And even against your own will, you read them. I read them. Yeah? And forward them. So you'll see worldwide that there's a shift. I'm not saying that terrorists aren't there, that there isn't suffering, there isn't war. But a shift is happening not just within Hinduism, worldwide, on an international level. We're connecting with people all over. So why to draw a boundary? That's one thing I wanted to say. Another thing I'd like to say, and only with your permission, if you don't mind.
She's going to insult me here, isn't she?
As we're finishing now, is it okay if I do a 2-minute meditation commentary?
I would rather not.
Okay, no
Sorry.
problem. No problem.
Sorry. It's just not the way Vicharamantan will roll.
No problem.
But do you want to say your last few closing remarks?
Sure.
Go on.
Sorry. So, firstly, thank you for inviting us. I think this is a really valuable dialogue that's going on. And just to sum up sort of on the topic, Shraddha plays a part in our lives every day. We may not acknowledge it, but when you go to the doctor, for example, if you've never been there before, you have Shraddha that he will give me a solution and he will understand what's going on with me. Shraddha plays a role in our lives every single day. But Shraddha is, very beautifully it's been said, to believe in that which I do not see, the result of which is I see what I believe. Or, as a beautiful quote by Rabindranath Tagore, and he says, faith is the bird that sings when the light of the dawn has not yet appeared. faith can transform our lives. Faith can give us this knowledge which will help us go beyond suffering. The sorrow and the suffering that we're experiencing right now is because of a misunderstanding. And if we want to clear up that misunderstanding, knowledge is the key. And faith is the key to knowledge.
Wonderful. Okay, and on that we will end tonight's Vichar Manthan.
I hope that you found tonight's VM interesting, and ideas such as Shraddha, faith, and Gyan will provide us all with much food for thought. VM is all about exploring ideas. It is not about giving you solutions. We hope that we have given you enough information and insight for you to take this into your homes, into your workplaces, and carry on the manthan in your lives. Let me first thank our expert witnesses and our chair, so please join me in a big round of applause. Let me also thank the New York Museum and its team and our audiovisual personnel. Phil, please. And last but not least, all of you for attending tonight.